My name is Clara Whitmore, and in every family photo, I look like a background object someone forgot to move. My brother, Ethan, was the center of gravity in our house. His lacrosse sticks were mounted like trophies, his honor roll certificates framed in the hallway, his childhood drawings pinned to the fridge long after the paper yellowed. Mine, my debate ribbons, my short story contest wins, my perfect report cards, all slid into a sagging banker's box in the basement, next to the fake Christmas wreath we never used. They just don't match the decor. Sweetheart, my mother said, once when I asked why nothing of mine was on the wall. She smiled like it was a compliment. I learned early that love in our house was loud and visible. Just never for me. When I was 10, Mom shaped pancake batter into a giant letter E for Ethan's big game day. I sat at the counter, waiting, my plate empty while the clock ticked loud over the stove. Eventually, I climbed down, got bread from the pantry, and made myself dry toast. No one noticed. No one asked if I'd eaten. The only sound that acknowledged me was the scrape of my chair on the tile. The older we got, the quieter my existence became. At 16, I won a regional writing prize, my first real proof that I was good at something. I came home glowing, clutching a crisp $100 check and a certificate with my name in elegant script. Mom barely glanced at it. "That's nice, Clara," she murmured, already reaching for a thick envelope addressed to Ethan. "While you're here, can you proofread his college essay? You're so good with words." My victory turned into his polishing rag. The first time they forgot me at Christmas, I believed them. "Oh, Clara, we thought you had plans with your friends," my dad said over the phone. It was a last-minute thing. I spent the holiday in a quiet house, microwaving leftovers and pretending old movies were company. In January, I visited my grandmother and saw the truth taped to her fridge, a glossy Whitmore family Christmas card. My parents and Ethan beaming by the fireplace, all in matching red sweaters. The photo date, December 24th. They hadn't gone anywhere. They just hadn't wanted me there. That was the day something in me didn't break exactly, it froze. And from then on, I stopped waiting to be chosen. When you spend your childhood being treated like a spare part in your own family, you learn two dangerous skills: how to disappear and how to survive without being seen. I mastered both before I hit adulthood. College was my first escape hatch. Not because my parents supported it, they didn't. They were too busy flying to Ethan's away games, touring his top choice universities, and reminding everyone that he'd been college material since birth. I paid for my textbooks by working late shifts at the campus cafe, grinding espresso until my fingers smelled permanently of burnt beans. And yet, in those first quiet semesters, something extraordinary happened. I realized how intelligent I actually was, without the constant comparison to Ethan. My mind felt like a room I could finally turn the lights on in. I joined a student-run startup incubator. I pitched ideas. I built small branding projects for local businesses, and they paid me actual money for my words, my insight, my vision. My professors saw me. My peers saw me. For the first time, I saw me. My parents. Not so much. When I excitedly told them about a branding award I'd won senior year, my dad's only reply was, "Have you talked to Ethan? He's thinking of launching a consultancy. Maybe you can help him with the design side of things." Help him. Always him. By graduation, I had learned to keep my victories to myself. They were safer that way. After college, I moved to Harborview, a glass and steel coastal city where no one knew I was the Whitmore's afterthought. I found a small studio apartment with creaky floors and a view of an alley, but it was mine. Mine in a way nothing in Maplebridge had ever been. I slept on a donated futon. I built a desk out of 2 crates and a door from a salvage yard. And I worked at my first real job was as a junior brand strategist at Redwood Meridian, a boutique agency known for taking broken companies and making them beautiful again. It felt poetic. I had spent my whole life cleaning up the messes created by other people's favoritism. Now someone was paying me to rebuild fractured narratives. I was good. Uncomfortably, undeniably good. I knew how to read people. Years of being invisible trains you to detect micro-expressions, tone shifts, the tiniest flicker of disappointment in someone's eyes. I knew how to shape ideas, how to turn chaos into clarity. My instinct for untangling messy stories became my competitive edge. By 27. I had climbed to senior strategist. By 29. My campaigns were bringing in seven-figure accounts. By 31. I had my own office overlooking the harbor, all glass, concrete and quiet ambition, and still, every December, my phone would buzz with the same brittle message from my mother. Clara, darling, we assumed you had plans. Maybe next year. I stopped asking before I turned 30. I stopped hoping long before that. Instead, I built my own traditions. Every year, I booked a solo trip somewhere cold. I bought myself the expensive wine. I wrapped my own gifts and opened them with a movie marathon. I cooked small holiday meals just for me because no one else ever had. Peppermint became my comfort scent, my chosen Christmas. Crisp and uncomplicated, but success doesn't silence old wounds. It only gives them new shadows to hide in. The more I built, the more I realized I was constructing a life with one essential piece missing, a home that felt like safety, a place where no one could erase me. No one could take credit for me. No one could forget me in my own doorway. I didn't know it yet, but that need, the hunger for a place that belonged only to me, was about to change everything. For years, the idea of home felt like a bruise I couldn't touch. My Harborview condo was beautiful, all glass, clean lines, and concrete minimalism, but it wasn't home. It was a place I lived, a place I worked, a place I collapsed into after long days, rebuilding other people's brands, but it was never a place where I exhaled. That changed the night my boss, Arthur, slid a cream-colored envelope across his desk. Inside was a number that didn't feel real at first, $85,000, a bonus. A door opening, a key to a life I hadn't dared to picture. I didn't call my parents. I didn't want to hear Ethan's name shoved into the conversation. I wanted to hear one voice only, Nana June, the one person who had ever seen me clearly. Well, it's about damn time the world noticed you, she said, her voice crackling like warm firewood. It was the closest thing to parental pride I'd heard in my entire life. That night, something restless pushed me toward possibility. I opened Zillow. I ignored the city lofts and industrial studios I usually browsed. On a whim or fate, maybe, I typed High Timber, a small mountain town I'd visited once, and there it was. A dramatic black A-frame perched on Kestrel Ridge, staring out over a valley of pines and snow. An angular silhouette, a wall of glass, a deck suspended over silence. It looked like freedom. Or maybe like the version of me I had never been allowed to grow into. At nearly midnight, I called the listing agent. She gave me a video walkthrough, flicking on lights, turning her camera toward vaulted ceilings, stone fireplaces, and pine frames glowing gold under warm bulbs. My breath caught. Could I live here? Could I wake up in a place untouched by my family's expectations? Could I build a home no one could erase me from? The answer rose in my chest like a long-held breath finally released. Yes. The next morning, I formed an LLC with Stone Ridge LLC, a legal fortress protecting both me and the house. My name would not be on the deed. No one would know this sanctuary belonged to me. I made an all-cash offer. They accepted in hours. From the moment the keys touched my palm, the A-frame claimed me. Or maybe I claimed it. That first night, I slept on an air mattress in the center of the great room. Moonlight washed over the glass wall, illuminating dust motes drifting like quiet ghosts. The house was cold, empty, echoing, but it was mine. Every weekend became a ritual of rebirth. I sanded cabinets until the air filled with the smell of raw wood. I installed sleek black lighting that flooded the kitchen with clarity. I replaced flimsy locks with reinforced steel and smart coding systems. I built guest beds with my own hands. I wrapped warm string lights around the deck until it glowed like a floating ship in the dark, and slowly, the house became something more than shelter. It became a mirror, reflecting the woman I was becoming, capable, self-made, and utterly untouchable. For the first time in my life, I felt safe. For the first time, I felt chosen by myself. The A-frame wasn't just a home. It was a sanctuary, a reclamation, a promise that from here forward, my life would be mine alone. The morning after I posted my first photo of the deck, fog rolling over the valley like a sleeping ocean, sunlight breaking up the ridge, I woke to a buzzing phone. At first, I thought it was work dotted. WSN single quotes T dot. It was the Whitmore Family Updates group. Chat, a digital graveyard where my father occasionally posted financial articles and my mother shared photos of Ethan's latest milestones. Today, it was on fire. Someone, undoubtedly my mother, had screenshotted my private post and dropped it into the chat. Aunt Marlene, whose house is this? It's gorgeous. Cousin Abby, Clara. Did you move? But then came the message that dropped the temperature in my A-frame by 10 degrees. Mom. Exciting news, everyone. Clara bought a beautiful mountain getaway. Perfect timing. Ethan and Lila's lease ends Friday, and this will give them space for the baby. We'll bring all their nursery things up then. So blessed. My coffee mug nearly slipped from my hands. They weren't asking. They weren't suggesting. They were announcing to the entire family that my sanctuary, the home I bought with my own scraped-together savings and sleepless nights, was now Ethan and Lila's nesting ground. Before I could process the violation, my father chimed in. Dad, Clara, purchases of this magnitude should be discussed with the family first. We need to go over tax implications and liability. Call us. We need to. Not you. Then Ethan himself appeared like the triumphant golden heir he'd always been. Ethan. And 1 second later, a photo of a storage unit stacked with cardboard boxes. Labeled in thick marker, nursery. My pulse didn't spike. My breath didn't quicken. I felt nothing, a cold, precise nothing. This was not confusion. This was a takeover, a hostile occupation dressed up in family cheerfulness. My phone buzzed again. A private message from my mother. Mom, we're so relieved we're all on the same page. Christmas will be at your place, non-negotiable. Don't worry, we'll cover. Groceries, the audacity of offering $40 of groceries in exchange for my $600,000. Home would have been laughable if it wasn't so expected. I typed the word slowly, deliberately. Me, no, I've made other plans. 3 small words. A lifetime's worth of weight. Within minutes, my father called. I answered. Clara, he began, his voice in full boardroom mode. Your mother's very upset. Stop being dramatic. Your brother's lease is ending. You bought a 3-bedroom house. It's a simple alignment of family resources. There it was, the truth he never bothered to hide. I wasn't a daughter. I was a resource. A spare room. A vessel for Ethan's endless needs. I understand, I said, steel threading through my voice. But no one is moving in. That is final. Do not come uninvited. Silence. An offended huff. Then we'll see about that. Clara, he hung up. I took screenshots of everything, every text, every emoji. every implied threat, and saved them in a new encrypted folder on my laptop. Deck. Boundaries, because this wasn't a family disagreement. This was the opening move in a siege, and I was done being the quiet moon orbiting their sun. This time, I would burn. After my father's call ended, clipped, offended, and thick with entitlement, I stood in the middle of my great room and felt the mountain quiet harden around me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't guilt-ridden. I wasn't doubting myself. I was steady. My phone buzzed again, a barrage of messages lighting up the family chat like a slot machine. Mom, Clara, darling, don't make this difficult. We're already packing. Just open the house. It's for Ethan and the baby. Dad, do not be unreasonable. We're coming Friday. Ethan, bring extra sheets. I didn't reply. Instead, I created a new folder on my laptop, deck boundaries, and uploaded every screenshot, every command disguised as concern, every we that erased my me. Then I reached out to the one person who had always spoken truth without sugarcoating it. Nana June. She answered on the first ring. Let me guess. She said, voice sharp as lemon rind. Your mother's trying to annex your house. Worse, I replied, pacing the wooden floor. They're planning to move Ethan in on Friday. A disgusted snort crackled through the phone. Of course they are. A vacuum hates to be empty, and your family hates when you have a single thing that isn't theirs. My breath shook once, only once, before settling. Don't let them in, Clara, Nana said. If they show up, lock the doors. And if they try anything, you call the sheriff. You hear me? Not a debate. A directive. Sheriff. The word landed like a stone dropped in clear water, sharp, decisive, echoing. This wasn't just holiday drama. This was trespass. This was coercion. This was control tightening its grip. Okay, I whispered. I hear you. Good, Nana said. And Clara? You don't owe them a damn thing. Not a bed. Not a room. Not a holiday. Nothing. I ended the call. My heart was no longer fluttering like a trapped bird. It was beating low and slow, like a war drum. Then came the final message. A notification from the camera app I'd installed weeks earlier as a precaution. Motion detected driveway. I opened the feed. Headlights, a dark SUV, moving slow. Too slow. My breath froze. They weren't waiting for. Friday, they were coming now. And my boundaries, 3 small words. Sent over text, we're about to be tested. In the cold mountain dark, the headlights crawling up my driveway that night turned out to be a false alarm, a delivery truck, turning around at the fork in the road. But that brief jolt of fear taught me something important. My parents weren't retreating. They were regrouping. For 2 days after my firm no, the group chat went eerily silent. Not a peep from Mom. No demanding bullet points from Dad. No smug emojis from Ethan. The quiet wasn't peace. It was preparation, and I, naively hopeful for a moment of reprieve, allowed myself to enjoy a sliver of calm. Long walks in the crisp mountain air, coffee on the deck, the steady hum of the fireplace. But peace with a family like mine is never a gift. It's bait. Everything started unraveling on Christmas morning. I woke to the smell of coffee and the glow of pale winter sunlight across the valley. For the first time in years, I felt settled. No obligations. No pretending. No trying to earn a seat at a table that had never been set for me. Then Priya, one of my closest friends, froze mid-scroll during breakfast. Clara, you should see this. She held out her phone. It was a Facebook post. My mother's. Public. Flowery. Manipulative in a way only Celeste Whitmore could master. Mom's post. Feeling blessed this Christmas? After weeks of hard work, we found a safe place for Ethan and Lila to start their family. They deserve stability, and everything is falling into place. Moving days soon. Attached was a mood board, soft blue nursery tones, a crib, a changing table, and a location tag. Not my exact address, but high timber, Elk Crest range. Close enough for social confirmation. Close enough to build a narrative. The comments were a chorus of congratulations. So happy for them. What a Christmas miracle. You're incredible parents. It was a digital land grab, a public claim. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't just entitlement. This was strategy. Before I could process that blow, my phone buzzed. A DM on Instagram from a girl I barely remembered from high school. DM. Hey, Clara. Weird thing, I overheard your dad last week at the country club asking for mountain property managers for his kid's new place. He mentioned your parcel number. Sounded sketchy. Just wanted to give you a heads up. My heart lurched. Parcel number. Not Clara's house. Not my daughter's new property. His kid's new place. This wasn't rumor. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was a coordinated narrative. The Whitmore. REBRAND. My parents weren't planning to move Ethan into my home. They were planning to claim it. Was already his. Priya put her hands on my shoulders. Clara, this is psychological warfare. I exhaled long and shaky. Yes, I murmured. And that means there's more. There was. I logged into the county clerk's portal, the one tied to my P.O. box and parcel filings. Most properties have a sleepy digital footprint. Mine DID and single quotes T. Under recent activity. A new entry blinked, pending change of address. Request. Forward all mail for Ethan Whitmore and Lila Whitmore to P.O. Box 42, High Timber. Filed 2 days ago. 2 days before they even attempted to come to the house. My pulse went cold. If that request had gone through, they could have used my mountain address to obtain a driver's license, vehicle registration, voter registration, residency claim, utility access. Potential tenancy rights mail is the backbone of legal identity. My parents knew that. Of course they did. I screenshotted everything. The Facebook post, the DM, the address change request, and emailed it all to the only person I suddenly trusted, Sable Winters, the local attorney I had consulted once before. Her reply came within minutes. Despite it being Christmas Day, Sable, do not engage. Do not post. Do not respond. This is no longer a family dispute. It is attempted fraud. Meet me Tuesday at 9 a.m. I stared at the message. My blood wasn't hot with anger. It was icy, steady, focused. But the escalation wasn't done that night. Long after my friends left and the valley went silent with snow, I set a new alert tone on my phone, a harsh digital shriek reserved only for one purpose, a geofence breach. At 2:11. It screamed. I jolted awake, scrambling from my phone. Geofence alert, perimeter breach, mailbox clustered. My heart slammed against my ribs. I opened the trail cam feed. The night vision image flickered to life. The mailbox area glowed green and ghostly. Dark sedan idled in the gravel turnout. The driver's door opened, and my father, my own father, stepped out. He was wearing a heavy coat, glancing around like a man committing a crime he didn't want neighbors to see. He walked straight to P.O. Box 42. He pulled out thick white envelopes, a whole stack, and shoved them one by one through the narrow slot. He wasn't mailing them. He was planning them, manufacturing a paper trail so he could later claim. We mailed the documents weeks ago. We've had consent for months. Clara knew. This was evidence tampering. This was identity manipulation. This was a legal ambush. I watched him in real time, a man stuffing fraud into federal property, under the cold eyes of a trail camera. When he finished, he brushed off his gloves, scanned the area again, and drove off into the night. I didn't cry. I didn't yell Dot, I simply whispered to the quiet house. They're really doing this. This wasn't love. This wasn't concern, Dot. This was possession. The Whitmores were no longer trying to guilt me into giving up my home. They were trying to steal it. And when someone tries to steal from you, you stop playing. Defense. You go on the attack. By the time the sun crawled over the ridge the next morning, I already knew one thing with bone-deep clarity. My parents weren't going to stop. They weren't capable of stopping Dot, so I did what they never expected. I stopped reacting, and I started strategizing. I drove down to High Timber with the fraudulent envelopes stuffed into a file folder, my trail cam video downloaded onto 2 USB drives, and a knot of resolve tightening in my chest. The snow on the roads was beginning to melt into gray slush, as if the entire mountain was waking up to the truth right alongside me. At 8:59 a.m. I walked back into Sable Winters' office. She didn't greet me. She didn't comment on the holiday, the snowfall, or my shaking hands. She simply motioned for me to sit and said, "Show me." I opened the folder and laid everything out: the forged household affidavit, the made-up HOA letter, my father's property manager declaration, and the time-stamped video of him stuffing evidence into my locked P.O. box. Sable watched the clip without blinking. When it ended, she folded her hands and said, "Good, this is exactly what we needed." I stared at her. "Needed?" "Yes," she replied, voice cool and precise. "They've escalated from boundary violations to criminal acts. That gives us leverage." Her keyboard clattered as she began, typing with almost frightening speed. "Here's what we're doing. 1. Cease and desist. Package 20 pages documenting attempted mail fraud, evidence planting, utility interference, identity manipulation, trespass attempt scheduled to be sent by certified mail signatures. Required 2. Fraud alerts filed." Sable had already placed flags on the post office, the DMV utilities, the county clerk. "All changes frozen," she said. "Only you can authorize adjustments now. They've been locked out." 3. A legal trap for their lawyer. "Your father keeps mentioning attorneys," she explained. "So we send a notice to the fictional counsel he claims to have. Either they hire real representation who will immediately see the fraud, or they admit they lied. Either option cornered them. Point 4. Emergency protective order." Sable slid a stamped document toward me. My breath caught. "This," she said, "is ready to activate the moment they make another move. A judge will issue it the same day. A single sheet of paper. 40 years of pain between the lines. And lastly," she said, turning her chair toward me, 5. You stop playing daughter. You are not Clara Whitmore," she said. "Here, right now? You are the managing member of Whetstone Ridge, LLC, defending company property. Do not argue with them on a porch. Do not engage emotionally. Speak in facts. Speak in law." I swallowed hard. "I can do that." "Good," she said, "because your family is trying to build a fictional version of you, one who is compliant, deferential, and manipulable. You must replace her with a real one." A quiet strength settled into me. This wasn't a crisis anymore. This was a campaign, and I was finally taking command. By the time I left her office, my folder was twice as thick, my defenses fortified, my mind sharper than fear. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for my family to decide who I was allowed to be. I was building the version of me they never saw coming. By December 31st, the A-frame felt different. Not fragile, not invaded, prepared. The storm that had threatened to swallow me whole now felt like it was gathering behind me, pushing me forward, steadying me. I spent the afternoon cooking. A massive pot of chili simmered on the stove, filling the house with cumin and warmth. A hot cocoa bar lined the dining table. The deck lights glowed like a winter lantern over the valley. This wasn't just a holiday. It was a defensive formation. At 6 p.m., my friends began arriving, boots stomping snow, arms full of wine and snacks. Priya hugged me first, holding on a fraction longer than necessary. "We're here," she whispered. "We've got you." Gabe lifted a bag of chips like it was weaponry. Operation Human Shield, reporting for duty. Luce simply squeezed my shoulder. Her eyes said everything her words didn't. My neighbors drifted in after. Sarah and Tom from the blue house down the ridge. Then a couple I'd only ever waved to. By 7:30, the A-frame was alive with laughter and music. A dozen conversations humming beneath the vaulted ceiling. This, people who chose me, was the safest room I had ever stood in. I made one final preparation. On my entry table, right beside the mugs and peppermint sticks, I placed a laminated sleeve. On one side, the recorded no trespass order. On the other, the first page of the emergency protective petition, red stamped and ready. A legal shield disguised as decor. What a centerpiece, Priya murmured, smirking. "Just setting expectations," I replied. At 8:03 p.m. The laughter thinned. It didn't stop. It dropped, like a record slowing. I followed everyone's gaze to the giant glass wall. Headlights, 2 pairs. Bright, harsh, slicing across my living room. My pulse didn't spike. It steadied. The vehicles crunched up the driveway, large dark SUVs, tires grinding in the snow. Doors slammed. I saw silhouettes, my father's squared shoulders, my mother's stiff coat, Ethan's entitled swagger, Lila's exhausted slump, and someone else, a man in a tailored blazer, clutching a leather briefcase. A mediator. Of course, the knock on my front door was not a knock. It was a demand, heavy, sure of its own authority. I set my mug down. My friends parted as I walked forward. I could feel their presence at my back, a quiet army. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in, curling around my ankles. My mother blinked at the sight of a warm, bright house full of witnesses. My father looked irritated, as if my refusal to be alone was an inconvenience. The man with the briefcase stepped forward. "Ms. Whitmore," he said smoothly. "I am Mr. Harrison, a family mediator retained by your parents to resolve this situation amicably." "There is no situation," I said. He smiled the way men do when they think they're about to win through condescension. "Actually," he began, "I have a temporary occupancy agreement here." I held up my laminated sleeve. "This," I said, tapping the deed, "is the legal owner of this home. Whitstone Ridge LLC. Tap the no trespass order. Tap the cease and desist. Tap the emergency petition." "In other words," I said, my voice cold and clean, "no one here is moving in." Ethan snorted. "Clara, stop pretending. We're family. You can't keep us out." He stopped when the shadow behind me shifted. Deputy Miller stepped forward from inside the house. Hat in hand, badge shining. My father went pale. Harrison swallowed. The deputy's voice thundered through the porch. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, Mr. Ethan Whitmore, you are in violation of a recorded no trespass order and an active emergency petition." He handed them a thick envelope, one for each of them. "You are hereby served." Lila's face crumpled. She stepped back. "I'm not doing this," she whispered, to Ethan, not to me. "Not to my baby. Not like this." She fled to the SUV, sobbing. The rest of them, stripped of their audience, their narrative, their control, backed away, with nothing left to say. The SUVs reversed slowly down the ridge road and disappeared into the dark. Inside. The room exhaled, a collective release of held breath. I closed the door, turned the reinforced deadbolt. Click. Final. Then I turned to my guests and smiled, a smile that reached all the way to my bones. "Now," I said, "who wants hot cocoa with extra whipped cream?" On New Year's morning, the A-frame was quiet in a way that felt earned. No dread, no calculating what new demand might be waiting on my phone. No fear of footsteps on my porch that didn't belong there. Just peace. Snow glittered across the ridge like powdered glass. The world outside was white and clean, as if the mountain itself had pressed a reset button. Inside, empty mugs and party streamers lay scattered across the table, the evidence of a night built from choice. Not obligation. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, warming my hands around a cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. A single message. From an unknown number. It was a photo. One of the envelopes my father had stuffed into P.O. Box 42, stamped, returned, unable to deliver. Below it, a line of text. They can't use your address anymore. Not for anything. Sable. Even today, she was watching the perimeter. I set the phone down and looked around the great room, sunlight catching in the rafters, the fireplace crackling softly, the glass wall opening out to the endless valley below. For the first time in my life, I felt it fully, not borrowed, not tolerated, not provisional. Belonging. My family had spent decades teaching me I was optional, forgettable, replaceable. I had built something they couldn't touch, not because of distance, or paperwork, or steel locks, but because it was rooted in a truth they never understood. I didn't need their approval to exist. I only needed my own permission to live. I exhaled, slow, steady. New year, new boundaries, new self. And finally, a life that was mine. Message and life lesson for the audience. Sometimes the family you're born into sees you as a resource, not a person. Your job isn't to convince them to treat you better. Your job is to protect the life you're building. Boundaries aren't cruelty. Distance isn't betrayal. And choosing yourself is not selfish, it's survival. You are allowed to close doors that only open to hurt. You are allowed to build a home and a life where you finally belong.